Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and I'm here to do another Tao of the Day. Tao of the Day, we look at the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written about 600 BC, and it is full of all sorts of enigmatic wisdom and advice on how to live a more reasonable life. When I talk about living a reasonable life, what I mean is living a life and we're not asking others to change for us. We're just accepting things as they are. And then we have to address how we feel about it. So if we feel frustrated or upset or hard done by, we have to understand that these are their choices. This is their choice to do something, and we kind of have to accept it. We have, just like we don't want to be controlled by others, we don't want to control others. And so in doing that, we want to be able to be open to giving others the freedom to be as they are. And if we don't like the way they treat us, it doesn't mean we have to suffer them. We can take our business elsewhere. Especially if they don't want to. We can tell them that we like or don't like what they're doing or how we're being treated or how we're feeling during a certain time. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to adjust. And if they don't adjust, we can, once again, just do what we want to do. Sometimes this is even family, but just because, everyone talks about, well, family is this thing that you have to, be nice to or what have you. Well, that's not necessarily true. You don't have to suffer your family. I mean, you do as a child, and they're going to set all of the trauma that you're going to have to go and deal with. But there was a decade where I didn't really speak to my family at all. And now my family and I have really great communication. Even though I don't talk to them. I talk to them on a regular basis, but regular for my father is maybe 3 or 4 times a year. And, I visit my mom every month or whatever. There's all of these things that it just has to be good for you. And if they want more, they can express it. Or if they're passive aggressive and give you little nudges and that makes you feel a certain way, it's your responsibility to figure out why you feel that way without being a victim. It's what do they make you feel, right? If they make a passive aggressive thing, it's just oh, well, I feel bad that I don't visit maybe. Maybe that's what they so I have an experience of feeling bad that I don't visit. Well, do you like that you don't visit? Or do you not like that you don't visit? Are you ashamed, or do you want to spend more energy visiting? 'Cause if not, then there's nothing to feel bad about. It's just I'm okay with my choices. And in the end of the day, that's really what we want to be, is okay with our choices. And as we can embrace being okay with our choices, we can understand more about ourselves and love ourselves more. So I am picking a number for JK today. JK is in New York, and her daughter is going through something today. And so I randomly picked number 42 for JK. And I'm just going to go ahead and read through this. And I'm going to talk about it as I do. I'm not going to I'm not going to try and understand where JK is and what she is going through. And I'm not going to try and talk about this too much with expectations of it meaning or being something for her specifically. She can't join me. She might not even be able to listen at the moment, so she can listen to it later. But she wanted me to pick a number for her. So what we did was we went ahead and picked the random number, and 42 came up. And 42 is holding both male and female. And what comes to mind is holding both extremes, right? Holding good and bad, holding right and wrong, holding all of those. It's not just one, right? This is non-dual, so there is no separation. Non-dual doesn't mean that the two don't exist. You have the freedom to define them, but and not defining them, not defining the two as different and looking at it as it is what comes to mind at the moment as I read the title, Holding Both Male and Female. So as this reads, Tao gives birth to universes. Universes give birth to planets. Planets give birth to beings, and beings give birth to everything else. Tao is the great mother. All else holds both male and female. By all things embracing both, harmony is achieved. To feel alone is avoided by men. Yet that is where no identity resides. The master holds no identity. She embraces her aloneness, realizing when she is at one with herself, she is at one with all things. You know, this last line stood out to me a little heavy. Realizing when she is at one with herself, she is at one with all things. This is what I was talking about earlier, right? Like, you can be at one with your family, and they are there to, one, set you on your way. So to set the trauma in your life that you're going to have to face, to give you the frames of reference in your life that you're going to have to dismantle or adjust. This goes back to, and I've talked about pre-karmic buffet on here, where this goes back to your pre-karmic choices. This goes back to before before your soul entered your body, if we can speak of it that way, right? You had a contract to deal with certain things. So you go through your pre-karmic buffet, and God or the universe or Tao says, okay, for you to have the experience that you need to have because of the contracts that you're, because of the contract that you're agreeing to go deal with on Earth or with life, right? So I'll go through pre-karmic buffet really quick. So pre-karmic buffet is before your soul enters your body, all of this sort of stuff. You go to this buffet, and this buffet is filled with all this delicious smelling and looking food. And, you know, one of the biggest problems with buffets is they're all you can eat. And so you could just pile it up. Now, you've never experienced food before. You've never experienced anything like this before. And so you go and you're excited and you're curious and you're taking all of this stuff. And they all have labels, but the labels don't mean anything to you. You don't even know that they're labels because they say things that you can't read. You can't decipher. All you can see is what your senses are bringing in. So what it looks like, what it smells like, and maybe even like what you imagine it's going to taste like. And so you start filling up your plate, and as you get back to your table, God or Tao or the universe is on your side, and they say, oh, you have all of this food here. You got these plates full of food, and You have all of this stuff. And, the thing is that you didn't realize that, like, when you picked up a big heaping spoonful of that dish, what that was global warming or racism or hate, abandonment, lost love, unrequited love. And you have these organized on your plate. And they're not all bad things. They could be wonderful things. They could be, overcoming all these. But you have to, like, the life that you're going to lead is going to be eating these plates of food. Some of these dishes are going to be bitter and they're going to be acquired tastes. And you're going to have to learn how to appreciate the deliciousness of pain. You're going to have to feel the deliciousness of medical malpractice. You're going to have to find the way through when you embrace that path that you are going on. And just because you don't know what it is that you're about to eat, like, your soul said, this is delicious. And they say along this line, this is, people with older souls take on heavier things, like heavier dishes that are, but smaller portions, so that you can help go through all this. This is all the experiences that we need to have, which is why, Julie and I have talked about that idea of like, well, they're doing it, so I don't have to, and I'm grateful. And they're part of me, and so I get to look at them in the eye, like homeless people or whatever. We can look at them and we can be grateful. So no matter what it is you're experiencing, this is pre-karmic. And so that which you step into, you can surrender to. You don't have to try and control. It says here, Tao gives birth to universes. And then universes give birth to planets. Because universes, like our universe, there's an edge to the universe. And I'm going to bring up Julie, because Julie is always open for a conversation. And I'm going to stay on 42, I think. Yeah.
40
hey,
is one of my favorites, I think. It comes up often for me. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to go through this with you.
Yeah, that's good. Can I just say something to you very quickly when you were talking about like dishes, and we get offered these kind of experiences that are dishes. Mm-hmm. The other day, about 3 or 4 days ago, I tasted truffle for the first time. Now, truffle.
The mushroom.
Yeah. It has a taste that is indescribable.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say a truffle tastes like anything else.
No. It's earthy.
Yeah. And it's really describing it wouldn't be the taste that I'm describing. It would be the flavor. There's a difference there. Because flavor becomes about via aroma that travels through your nose. And as we chew food, we taste it on the tongue on the way in. But as we are chewing, we tend to breathe out through our nose. And that's where flavor is suddenly recognized. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
Because that whole, that's that olfactory senses,
yes.
Right? Like that whole aspect. That's why, when I was a kid, we used to have an experiment where you're eating something and you hold your nose and you can't taste it.
Yeah. But that goes to the unknown then for me. So I'm listening to what you are saying, how you are reading this verse and the things that you're capturing from it. And that's that. I didn't have a need to have an idea of what truffle tasted like. I was offered it as an experience.
And that's a hell of an experience.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Because in my daily kind of living, with fingers in the air norm, I wouldn't come across tasting truffle.
No, you get offered tasting truffle unless you're, unless you're doing it for, you know what I mean. I mean, those truffle is more expensive than gold.
Yes, it is. And so to be able to place myself through the unknown into this space that had, it was where I was doing a cat sit actually, and the people came home and they brought all these lovely things home that were norm for them. They were treats for them as well.
Yeah.
But it was within their autonomy to be able to create these experiences. And because I was in that space, I got to experience this.
Right.
And, it kind of goes with what you were saying. It's an acquired taste. Yes, it is. But if you go into these things with no expectations, into the unknown in that way, the experience will be what it is. So for me, I now know that I could have truffle again.
Yeah.
But I'm unlikely to. I will probably, if someone said, would you like to try some truffle? I'd say, I'm okay, thank you very much.
Well, you don't know what you're going to say at that moment.
Yeah, I might just
You could say that.
Give it a go.
You definitely could say that, right?
Yeah,
but you could also it's funny. Like I had a guest when I was doing Airbnb, and he was from Colombia, and he became a friend of mine and whatnot. And I offered, and I was making my own sauerkraut, my own fermented foods, and fermented foods are not foods that are common in equatorial areas. And he was from Colombia.
Yeah.
In equatorial areas, unless they're alcohol based.
Yeah.
Like fermented foods, you're not going to ferment anything in an area where all year round you can go out and pick food off the ground. You know what I mean? So I offered him fermented foods, and he said it was interesting, and I don't know that he liked it off the bat, because it's strong. Like fermented foods, like sauerkrauts and stuff, they're strong.
That's like the truffle experience you're talking about.
Yeah. And for someone who's never had fermented foods other than alcohol, it's a new experience, and you have no idea what to think about it.
Yeah.
And so you eat it and you say, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I'm good. I don't have to eat it anymore. And then 2 weeks after he returned to Colombia, he reaches out and asks me about fermented foods because he's having a craving for it, because in my opinion, the bacteria, as it got to his stomach said, whoa, this is good for me. Like this is healthy. And I am now going to send a message back to the brain going, remember that thing? That was the thing that thing you didn't like, that thing that was weird, that is a thing that you're going to want again. So excite the body to have it again.
Interesting stuff, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
It's so you can never really say never. You can never really say,
it's like, okay,
no.
I've had it, and I'm not going to go out of my way to get it. But if it crosses my path, I know what it is, and I can make an informed decision.
I may even say, will it be the same?
Right, and then be able to appreciate it differently from a different perspective.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So you can either say, oh, do you want a little shaved truffle on your
Soup.
pasta dish or whatever? And it's just like, oh, let me think, like, that's going to bring in this flavor or whatnot, or it's going to be different. And you now have an experience, and that experience that you have is also part of the cat sit, is also part of the relationship you have with the people that live there, and also part of, other things that you're going
interesting stuff. It's definitely the experience of that has opened me up to experiencing more. It may not be truffle, but it may well be something else.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of exciting. I do, it is so lovely a place to be when you can receive these dishes anyway.
Right.
When you can receive these dishes. So, yeah, you're right. Some of them are going to be delightful, as in experiences I'm talking now.
Right.
And some of them are going to need you to interact with them.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where this number 42 has this, like, beings give birth to everything else.
Mm.
Beings, like, the truffle is a being, it's a thing that's alive and doing its thing in the earth, and it doesn't have a judgment, and there's no judgment of it, and then we've given it value.
Yeah.
We've given it, like, even things that have flavor, like, right? Like, there are people that don't have a sense of taste.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the miracle berry?
No.
No. Okay. Miracle berry is an interesting thing. It's an African berry, and you can get it you can get like dried pill form of these berries. You can order them. And this is what you would do if you wanted to do something called flavor tripping. Flavor tripping is if you take this miracle berry and you, like, let it dissolve in your mouth, this pill or whatever, like this, and it's just compressed miracle berry and maybe something to bind it or whatever. And you let that kind of dissolve on your tongue. It shuts down your ability to taste bitter things and your ability, and sour, right? So you no longer have the ability to taste the bitterness of stuff. So if you were or sour, and so if you take this miracle berry and you eat a lemon, it just tastes like lemonade. There's no sourness in it at all. Now, if you eat greens, they're slightly sweeter with the bitter is gone. Drinking coffee tastes like it has sugar in it.
That's interesting.
The reason is because it's blocking your brain from having access to the bitter and the
signaling, the signaling from the tongue.
Right. Now,
those senses have been blocked. Yeah.
If you have a lettuce in your garden and it bolts and you taste that, and that bitterness that kind of stays with you after you have it, you've had that happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that, like, just deep green bitterness that just kind of stays in the back of your tongue, right? It's just like on the sides, and it's like, oh God. And I've had that happen, and I take a miracle berry and it is just lettuce.
That is awesome.
It is just lettuce. It has nothing. All the bitterness is gone. It doesn't stick with you. And even when the miracle berry only lasts for, like, the time for a meal, more or less, about 20, 30 minutes.
That's interesting stuff, isn't it? Because you think that sometimes bitterness in fruits and things are there to discourage you from eating them.
And it is true. But the areas where the miracle berry has grown the people that were there don't are drought resistant. So if a drought happens, they can eat food that is normally too
unpalatable
bitter to eat. Yeah. Right, unpalatable. Right. And then we look at that as being like a way to blessing, engage. What's that?
That's a little blessing, isn't it? Right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting how we look at food, because what it says here is Tao is the great mother. All else holds both male and female. All else holds both delicious and bitter.
Mm-hmm. I was going to get to that point in a minute with you. Is sometimes if you take that tautness out of a food, you may find that you're actually appreciative of those bitter tinges that give it its signature.
Right.
It's like crossing the T's, isn't it?
It's like what?
Crossing the T's and dotting the I's sometimes.
Yeah, and recognizing the bitterness, right? Where I don't like it. And then you get rid of it, and it's like, okay, well, there are useful times to get rid of it, right? Like when you are, all of your lettuce is bolted, and it's like, oh, I can't eat any of this. Well, now you can, and that's good. But it's so good to be able to recognize and, correct the error, which is, okay, pick it earlier, or, do what I have to do to make. But everything holds, the bitterness and the bitter and the sweet.
Yes.
And it's like, what is this situation? And how can I see this situation? And how can I allow the bitterness to be there? Or what can I do?
I want to be my own personal miracle berry.
Right. How can what can I do to remove the bitterness? Like the miracle berry blocks the taste receptors.
Yeah.
So that you can eat it. And I don't know if this analogy is really good, but I'm moving with it.
Because what it's kind of saying is once those bitterness, those things are blocked off, then it allows you to focus on the other flavors in that, So that is kind of a good thing as well. It's very helpful.
And I do think that, like, when we have an idea that something is bad, if we can block that message, then we can see the good in it. Nope, you dropped off. You can come back up. Right? When we see and define something, right, as bitter, as define something as, oh, this can't be good, right? Or this, and we go about our lives constantly reminding ourselves, this is not good, this is not good, this is not good. Well, that bitterness comes out, and that bitterness becomes strong, and there might be something that we could do just to think about it differently, not put so much effort, not put so much attention on that singular, it's bad message.
That's what I was going to say about it, is that actually allows you to discover the flavor of all the other aspects. So the saltiness, the sweetness, because those are all parts of those receptors, just as an idea of taste.
Right.
But in an experience then, if you are going to only focus on it being bad, it will be bad, because like you said, we birth everything. Right. So we birth that experience as well. So maybe if we block off that it will be bad and then just look at it as it is an experience, maybe we can start to find those sweetnesses in it as well, and maybe the salty bit in it that can be quite pleasurable, actually. Right. Just seeing it as it is and getting a full perspective of it can change how we move through these experiences. It can change what we birth. It can change what we birth, as in thoughts and feelings and actions, by doing that. That's absolutely awesome, Martin John. Absolutely awesome. I do love that. Thank you for telling me about the miracle berry too.
Yeah, and I think you and Brad would have a kick. A
flavor trip.
A flavor trip.
Love that.
like you can look online, because vinegar is something that you can drink, and it's like a sweet little soda.
Wow.
And you just put it down. Like you're going to get a stomach ache if you start drinking too much vinegar.
Yeah.
But for all of those things that you go, it's too bitter, and like all of those things, or it's too sour, it's too whatever. You can drink and eat with ease.
That's kind of interesting, because I can now have a competition with Millie, who likes to buy these sour sweets, and she'll give you a sour sweet and she'll say, put that in. And it's the longest person without pulling a face is the winner.
Just put a miracle berry in 5 minutes before you do it.
Yeah. I'm gonna rock
and
that.
And you'll be like, oh, give me more.
Yeah, absolutely. That could be fun, couldn't it?
Yeah.
That could be fun.
She'd be like, how are you? And just like, no, and then you just peel a lemon and eat it.
Yeah, that would be like.
And then she would grab it and be like, no, that's not possible. And then she puts it in and she can't keep her face.
Yeah, exactly. It's just fun. What a lovely, fun thing to do.
Yeah. And then after you teach her about the miracle berry, then you give her one, and then you say, now take a bite of, and she would freak out.
Yeah.
Because it's an amazing experience to
I'd love to have that with Millie. That would be absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I'll let you know what happens.
Yeah. I would love to experience that.
All right. Take care, Martin John. Thank you for having me on as well.
Absolutely. Always.
I love the way
I'm going to continue talking about this, but
yeah, I like the way that when you read the verse, you help us as the listener, or somebody who picks a number, or you help us make kind of some sense in it in our daily living. I think that is a beautiful skill that you have there, Martin.
No, I don't know how I do that, but if that's what I'm doing, I'm glad.
It's miracle berry. I'm telling you.
That's beautiful.
Love you.
Love you. So I'm going to go ahead and read this 42 again. Again, this was picked for JK, holding both male and female. The Tao gives birth to universes. Universes give birth to planets. Planets give birth to beings. Beings give birth to everything else. Tao is the Great Mother. All else holds both male and female. By all things embracing both, harmony is achieved. To feel alone is avoided by men, yet that is where no identity resides. The Master holds no identity. She embraces her aloneness, realizing that when she is at one with herself, she is at one with all things. Aloneness is a big part of this verse. Aloneness, not loneliness. Because you can be lonely when you're with somebody else. But aloneness, this idea that when you're alone, this is like my dark retreat, this is when you're alone, you don't have an identity. You don't have to be something for someone else. You can be here as you are, as healthy as you are, as sick as you are. You don't have to be anything for anyone. You can simply just be. The Master holds no identity, and she embraces her aloneness. So she is alone even when she is with others. Like, to feel alone is avoided by men. Yet that is where no identity resides. So men tend to not want to feel alone. Even when they're alone in their room, they want to feel as if there are other people that are there for them. But the master embraces her aloneness, knowing she's alone always. Even when she's with other people, she is alone because those other people are her. I'm going to bring JK up because she's here and we're reading this for her. And then I do have someone else in the queue that I can get to shortly. JK, how are you? How's your morning? How's it going?
Everything's great, actually.
Oh, good.
I thank you to you and Julie, and those thoughts are really awesome. I definitely, it's just about the experience as a whole. And I think looking back at being in the same place at a different time, different me,
Yeah.
it's really kind of interesting because, when this is a second occurrence of this situation, and it's interesting, the place I was at to look at this and say, okay, all right, we're here. So what are we going to do with this? And how are we going to learn from the last time? Because, as you often say, when you're given something as overt as that, there's something. It was funny because I was walking around and I thought I'd be more nervous, and there is some, but just trying to work on opening up and opening my heart and being willing to take in whatever there is around. And I was walking around yesterday, and all it says across the crosswalk was, "Don't worry, everything." I mean, it literally in words. And then if you go the other way, because I got kind of turned around, everything will be all right. There, and I was like, okay, I get it. Sometimes I need something that blatant. But the nice part is that I was aware of it and I got to experience that moment. So anyway, all this to say, whatever the taste, sweet or bitter, as a person who loves bitter things, actually, I do like lemon and I like vinegar and things like that. So, whatever that is, but realistically, you love both and you love both equally. And I think this reading was perfect for that, because that's something that I'm only just now in my life recognizing that, it's both. It's all, it's everything. And you have to love all pieces of yourself, all pieces of the world around you, whatever it is, bitter or sweet or none of the above.
Right. So. And like the bitterness can be overwhelming at times, and that's okay. Like, it's okay for it to be overwhelming, and it's okay for you to have to do something, like take a miracle berry or whatever, to be able to get through it. Whatever that is, like that can be a pacifier, that can be, that can be something that you don't like that you do, but, here you are doing it because, like, I just need this right now, and that's okay. But you do that without damning how bitter this experience is. Yes, this experience is more bitter than I can handle, but I can still allow it to be that without having to ditch dive, without having to do all of that, like running around to make me the victim. I don't have to be the victim.
Yeah. It's cool because it's about what I focused on, as I travel and go through the day yesterday and today, is not being aware of how I'm feeling, but not getting lost in it. And it's funny because this time, as I get more attuned with myself and start being more aware, I realized that anxiety, used to be very overt for me, very loud, very, like a kid throwing a tantrum almost, in various forms. Whatever that happened to be, it was very big always. And now it's very subtle. And so I have to be paying attention. Otherwise I don't pick up on those subtleties about my behavior and my thoughts and where they're ending up. And it's really cool now to be able to say, oh, okay, like how far out. Oh yeah, I get that. Okay. But not get lost in that emotion and get lost in it and fall victim to it in, for lack of better words, but
Yeah, it's
it's a
just the
really cool
observation.
experience. Yes, it is cool, and being okay with those feelings and saying, "Oh, okay, that's what this makes me feel." I don't know, what did Lois said? Okay, that's what we're doing now. I think she said on one of those. Okay, I got you. This is what we're doing now. I see, and keeping that in my head as I flow through this, and whatever the experience is, it is just an experience, and we'll see where it goes. Like the farmer, we'll see.
That's right. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. So,
and
thank you for doing this.
Yeah. And at the end here where it says the master holds no identity, because within that identity, right? Like any identity that she has for other people or any identity that she believes she has to uphold is going to push things into the good, bad, right, wrong realm. And so this is why she embraces her aloneness. And she embraces her aloneness with others. So she realizes that this is her going through this. And complaining about it or trying to power through it with your identity it's not like you can just observe it. You can observe it without the identity, without the good, the bad. You can just say, oh, far out, right? Like realizing when she is at one with herself, she is at one with all things. So then you can welcome everything as it is.
And that's all it's going to be, right? Is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's it, and just, if you just let it be, I mean, that's what it's hard. That definition changes. I hear you say that too, allow things to be as they are. And that's all of it. That situation, that experience, a person. A lot of times I would equate that to a person, right? But then it's all of it. And it's kind of cool when you start looking around and you just let things be and see what happens.
And even your thoughts, but you can recognize, I don't like that I'm having this thought. And so you can move towards healing in that way. But, the thought is something that maybe you've been nurturing for a long time and is it is its own being, and it has to live a life too. And so it's like,
that, right?
Yeah.
You have to respect that as well.
Right. Respect that and just be like, oh, okay, well, let me try to stop. Oh, nope, can't. Okay, well, I'm going to do it until I don't. Right. And then it's like, move on. And, like as little judgment as you can give it, because that judgment, once again, stagnates energy and stagnates your ability to grow or witness or observe.
And you miss the overt stuff too. I mean, if I wasn't looking in the direction I was looking and I didn't get turned around, I wouldn't have seen the whole, I mean, it was pretty cool. It was in the crosswalk. Don't know who sat there and did that, but it was, if I wasn't looking that way or if I was lost in another way, I could have easily just walked straight and missed it, and didn't. Or if I didn't get turned around. So all those moments and appreciating those moments and appreciating that experience, whether it means something or not, it's irrelevant. It was a cool experience. And I said, yeah, that's pretty cool. And, then I finally found my way. It took me a few minutes, but because I was out of the way, I had that moment.
Right.
And so I appreciate that, and it was funny.
And that's Tao inspiring you to make a wrong turn.
Yes. And it was
not
really
wrong.
Trusting.
Yeah.
Yep. And you have to trust that, process that, trust it. And I think that's always the hard part for me, Martin, is really trusting. And when I do trust, you know what? You get exactly where you're supposed to be right when you're supposed to be there. And you just have to believe that. And so wherever moment you're in, you're there, appreciate it, observe it, and try to keep going forward. So whatever's next, but believe that that is not, don't give it a name, like you said, bittersweet, whatever.
Right.
Just allow it to be and then go to the next, because it all came together for you to be there at that moment, whether you missed the train or not. I mean,
that's right.
It
There's a
doesn't,
reason
some people miss
that you're here.
Yeah, that's right. And start
And
being aware
made a
of that.
turn. You didn't make a wrong turn. You went to where you were supposed to be. The problem is that because you had your sights set on a destination, it was that destination that defined the turn. It was that destination that defined your lostness. But you weren't lost.
Exactly. No, just turned around for a minute. And then I turned around again. That's what I do.
And you turned around, right. And you know, and that's the thing, like, turned around, like, you were exactly where you needed to be. Like, it wasn't like you weren't turned around from anything, because the destination wasn't the message that you needed. Right. And living, this is why, you know, when I don't know what number it is, but it talks about like living in collaboration with Tao. And it's like, oh, okay, thank you. And then you move on. You know, it's just like, oh, I needed a message. Tao inspired someone to write that. And Tao inspired 15 people to walk by that and notice it. And one of them was you.
It was pretty cool. And it was pretty cool that you couldn't see the other half of the message unless you went the other way. So unless somebody went one way and then turned around and went the other way, you didn't get the whole message.
Right.
So that was the coolest part of it. And I did because I went one way, I went back, but that's, you know, that's part of life. And I was not in any way distraught. I did not feel it was what it was, you know, and it was when I'm able to do that, it's when I stop getting in my own way, so to speak, and I allow it to just be, it really is kind of magical stuff. I mean, we didn't know what we were having for dinner. And, you know, I got a message saying, yeah, I think I might have some bad creamer in the fridge, and that's about it. Where I'm staying. And I looked up and I got off the subway and I looked up and I said, oh, look, there's a store right there. Oh, it looks like a grocery store. And I went on in, and guess what? Everything just fit just right. And it was just enough because I had too much, you know, not too much stuff. I had just what I could hold. And then you know, and it wasn't too far where I had to end. I mean, it was just all kind of, the train was a little bit late, off schedule. Well, I was able to catch that train, not have to wait. Oh, it was perfect. It was, but it's a matter of, you know, getting outside of my own head and looking and being aware and just allowing and trusting. I think trusting is hard for me sometimes, and we'll see. But thank you, Martin. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see.
And we'll see. All right. I'm looking forward to chatting with you again. Good luck to your daughter and everything.
Thanks. Bye now. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. We're going to bring up Yvonne. Yvonne and then Wandering Fool is in the queue. Hey, Yvonne, how are you?
I'm all right. I'm looking in. I'm getting ready to get baptized.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Today or this weekend or what?
This week. I think this Sunday, and my celebration is Wednesday.
Oh, congratulations. And what, like, Baptist, or what are you getting baptized into?
My baptism of my reborn again.
Evangelical? What like what sect of the Christian denominations do you?
I'm a Baptist.
Oh, okay. So you're getting born again this weekend. This is a great experience. And what? Let's find a number for you. What do you pick a number between 1 and 81?
85.
A 1 in 81.
82.
Between 1 and 81.
81. Oh, I'm thinking. Can't think right now.
Okay. I can pick a random one for you.
Okay.
25.
Okay. Right.
So this one reads, before the manifestation of heaven, there is void.
Mm-hmm.
It is still and it has no form. Inexhaustible, it reaches everywhere. It is the core of everything. Since names became important,
Mm-hmm.
it has been called Tao. Now, we could say it has been called God.
Mm-hmm.
It flows among manifestation without resistance, inside, outside, conscious, and subconscious. Tao is great. Universes are great. Planets are great. Beings are great.
Mm-hmm.
These four are all great and follow the law of their principle. All beings follow their planet. Planets follow their universe. Universes follow Tao. Tao follows only its nature. You know, when I read that and I think about you having, born again and being baptized, I can't help but think about the water. Do you get baptized in water or oil or how?
Water.
Water. The water and how the water is so essential to life on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, being baptized in water addresses all beings follow their planet. You're being baptized in the planet. The planet is part of the universe, and the universe is God, right? The universes follow God. And so this is us, right? Like attaching ourselves to our principle as the planet is the next step up close to God.
Right.
And so as you reach into, and as you dive into the water and surround yourself with water,
Mm-hmm.
you are surrounded by the earth.
Right.
And you're surrounded by the life-giving source of the earth, right? We could go without food for a time, but we can't go without water for very long.
Right.
And water, as it says in the Tao, water nourishes everything without taxing it.
Right.
And we get to grow as we interact with water.
Uh-huh.
And this first line, before the manifestation of heaven, there is void, there is emptiness. And that emptiness, as we've read before in other verses, are in everything. It's in water, it's in you, it's in every cell of the universe. There's that emptiness. Inexhaustible, that emptiness reaches everywhere. And it is the core of everything. It is within each of us. And by you embracing and surrounding yourself with water,
Right.
you are surrendering to your principle, to the thing that without which you could not exist, the planet. And the planet is connected to the universe. You're connected to the universe too, but you're here on the planet, and then you can't, that's not, the universe isn't your manager, right? Like that's the planet. That's your principle. And so you embrace that water. And then the planet is in the universe. And so that connects you to that. And then the universe is connected to the void, the space, the emptiness of space. And beyond the edge of the universe exists that void, and that is Tao, God. That is that is what drives everything and is connected to everything. Once again, this is a non-dual text, so there is no, like, you are you, but within you is the universe as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts? Any thoughts?
No, no thoughts.
Okay.
You answered all the questions.
Oh, wonderful. Well, if there's anything else I can say, I would, if you have any questions or anything, otherwise I'll bring up Wandering Fool.
Okay. That was it.
Thank you so much for joining me. Cicely. How are you?
I am doing awesome.
Oh, I'm so excited. Tell me.
I finally got to look at a situation as an observer of a circumstance versus a willing victim.
Yeah.
And when I finally looked at it, I was like, oh, I see you. It's okay, but I see you.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was no, oh, well, you did, and this is this, and that is that. It's just like, okay, I see it.
Yeah. It's tough, man, because we are constantly being reminded with our eyes that other things exist. And yet, that shit's us. Like, even though, like, our eyes are seeing it, we're like, but look, I have proof. It's like, all you do is have proof that you don't have faith.
And without having faith that it's just going to be as is, there's a lot of anxiety on top of that. And I've noticed my anxiety level has went from 100 to like barely 20. And that's only if I'm just, oh, I wonder, oh, I'm worried, oh, I have to actually think about it. And I was looking at it like, that's new. When did that happen?
You know, and that's the thing. Change happens within us, and without all the pomp and circumstance. Like, we graduate from one thing, from being one iteration of ourselves to another without any fanfare. And so, being in this space of just like constant changing and always going through all of this, like being in that space of just like, and who is this? Like, when I did my Recover Yourself podcast, one of the questions I would ask everybody is there a moment in your life when you realized you were a different person? You know, for me, it was this moment where I didn't even recognize it, someone else did. I was living with a couple people, and I said, oh, mine is the one that's half full. And someone looked at me and said, Martin, you just described that as half full. And I was like, what? Like, when did I become a fucking optimist?
Like, where did that come from? And it's like, oh, well, would you look at that?
Right. And it just like dawned on me that I had been an optimist for a while, and I never, you know, I had been looking at things positively for a while, and I just didn't recognize. I still saw myself as this, you know, addict and hoodlum, and, you know, like, even though I had changed so much, you know. And I mean, I talked with people for my podcast, and I interviewed people who would talk about conversations they would have, and they would be saying something, and as these words are coming out of their mouth, they're like, who is this person saying this? You know, like, how have I become, like, when did I be, and that's the thing. It's all, you know, we talk about stillness and integration, and it's like, it doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly and over time, and your patience, you know, and the more patience you have, the quicker it can happen, because then we're not judging. And like I say, when judgment stagnates energy, so if it's going to stagnate that energy, you're not going to grow. And the less you judge, the more that growth will just happen naturally.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
It's the quietest transition ever.
Yeah.
Because,
you know, go on.
Because it was so tiny. Because you know how pervasive certain energies can be. There's so many things that can be embedded into the mind, into the body. And you don't notice when they disappear until it's all the way gone. And it's like, oh, it's clean back there. What is that? Is that space?
Well,
Did we find space back there? Wait a minute. Did we clear out some rooms? I wonder what else we can do. But you also mentioned something yesterday that really stuck with me. Noticing when you yawn or cough.
Oh, yeah.
I was working with somebody last night, and I yawned the entire time I was around them. And I was like, why am I getting tired? When I wasn't around her, I was pretty okay. I was getting things done. I was walking around, earning my vibes. And then I looked, and I was like, where is this energy so familiar? And why is it making you tired? And
it might not be making you tired, but it is making you yawn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, maybe that's associated with tiredness, but yawning is about, we can talk about it in a number of ways. We can take the awe out of it, and we can say, well, yawning is about breathing, you know, and you're breathing shallower. And so what's happening when you're around this person maybe is that you're having energy that's causing you to have a tight chest, causing you to breathe shallow, causing you to... But that energy is what's there.
It is. And you want to know what it was? It was a familiar energy.
Yeah.
This
always is, yeah.
It was so familiar that it was causing that last little bit of flare-up of anxiety. And I, instead of going in and trying to take the awe out of it, I just looked. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting. And that's been my new phrase for the year. That's interesting.
That's interesting.
What is that?
That's similar to my far out. Just like, oh, far out. Like, that's far out. That's interesting. You know, like, look at that. Like, I'm far out. I'm yawning when I'm around this bitch. Like, what the fuck? Like,
and come to find out,
that's telling me something.
It was the same stagnant energy that was causing the anxiety where I was. I moved places. I got to a different environment. And I got to a place, I realized a lot of my anxiety was caused by the people that surrounded me at the time. Yeah. And a lot of my connections were kind of draining. And the more I looked at it, I was like, oh, I see you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't I'm tracking the same energy with me because da-da-da-da-da. It was more like, this is the last time you have to observe this for you to get it. You got it.
Yeah, that's the minimum viable dose.
Right. It was just enough for me to recognize it immediately. Like, oh, that's familiar. Oh, that's where the anxiety started at. Oh, that's just people being people. Okay. La-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, now you can go about your business again because you don't have to hold on to it. That's the minimum viable dose is important. And that's very, very much aligned with you're going to do it until you don't. Because until you get your minimum viable dose, meaning that you get your lesson as soon as you can. And if you can't, don't worry about it. Just you'll have it again. Whatever. If you're a victim to something, well, that's fine. But eventually, it's about like getting the lesson. And the sooner you can get the lesson, the less lessons that you need.
Bingo.
But that doesn't mean that more lessons aren't coming for something else. Like there's always work. I always tell people, like, no matter how much work you've done, the amount of work you have to do does not diminish.
Right. And to look at it from a fresh set of eyes, it goes from nihilism to absurdism.
Yeah.
Yes, the work, it used to be, well, the work is never ending and, oh, when is this going to be over? I'm so sick of this shit. And then it goes to absurdism. The work is never over. So get your battle armor ready. Are you ready?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Let's go ride.
And it's fun. Like, it's fun to have these moments of like I think, at least at this point for me, it's like when you have moments of like, yeah, okay, I'm upset about this thing. And it's just like, oh, wait, this is me. Where is this me? It's just like, oh, no, they're doing it. It's like, oh, wait, far out. Like, let's keep looking. Let's keep exploring. And let's keep, like I got to feel this right now because I can't not for whatever reason. And so, well, let's pick a number and see if we can kind of talk about this a little more.
31.
31. Of weapons and mourning.
Ooh.
Weapons are horrible tools. The master avoids weaponizing anything. Weapons promote fear and separation. Avoided by those who walk in blessing, embraced by those who walk in delusion. If compelled to use them, she uses restraint. There is no glory in victory if weapons are used. Her enemy is not evil, but human like herself. How can she see glory in their slaughter? When the master is compelled to engage a weapon, she does so gravely and filled with compassion, knowing that this is the first state of her mourning.
Judgment can be engaged as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And without it, humans are just humans. Nope. Because I've come to a concept that there is no good or bad. Right. It's more along the lines of people doing what's best for them in the moment, or what I like to call taking care of them and theirs.
Mm-hmm.
People will defend what they need to defend to keep their identity intact. But me being in a very fluid state of life, I don't have an identity. I just have the being. Like, I'm just here. And in that transition, it used to be scary. And now it's just like, well, I am that I am. What's next?
Yeah. That's right.
And it feels good. Like, I finally feel alive.
Yeah. And that's, as we continue to do this work, that feeling gets deeper. And I don't know how many times I was like, oh, I finally feel like myself. Oh, I finally feel like myself.
Yeah.
I was just like, just let it go and feel. Like, there's no reason to compare it to what I felt yesterday.
Right. And
because I am myself today.
Yeah. And every day. Because there's nobody else inhabiting unless we got some other stuff we need to talk about.
Absolutely. I like this one because it's okay to weaponize something. Now, they're horrible tools, and we're going to avoid it we're going to avoid it as much as possible. But if compelled, we use restraint, meaning that we use the weapon deftly. We use it well. And we only use the weapon so that we can, whether that weapon is, like if somebody is goading us or trying to hurt us, maybe that weapon is staying away. Maybe it's not engaging. But we do have permission to weaponize things, but we have to recognize that that's the first state of our mourning. That's the first state of us saying, I'm sorry I did that.
Yeah. It really is, because...
Oh, you dropped off. I have Peter in the queue, but I want to bring you up just to finish this up, and then we'll move over to Peter. Go ahead.
Because in stepping away, we have to mourn the living.
Mm-hmm.
We have to mourn things that we could have been, should be, would be, and actually want to be, for the space of what is. And what is ever shifting, and it's always comfortable. But I realize I am nowhere near who I was 4 years ago.
No.
And to see a slight reminder and just observe where I was and what I was surrounded by, and I was like, I see why you had anxiety. Sheesh. Good to know.
Right.
Next motion.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I see why you were a panic-stricken child at all fronts. It's very jarring experience to see, but you're an adult.
But it was a necessary experience to be who you are.
Yes. To find that inner peace somewhere, that little bit of something. That's just like, you know what? Just see how it plays out. And I got to watch it in third person, because it wasn't a conversation being had with me. It was a conversation between two people with very familiar energy, and watching those around observe. And they were like, oh my God, will you cut it out? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, that's where the anxiety came from. Got it. Cool.
Yeah. And however, again, minimum viable dose, whatever it takes. And maybe the minimum viable dose is 4 years of the universe trying to get through to you, and you get through to, you allow yourself to get through to in a certain way. And that's okay. Because the dose just might not be strong enough. It might not be obvious enough. It might not be subtle enough. It might not be strong enough. And then eventually the dose hits. And when it hits, you don't need to revisit. Now you're like, okay, now I can go. Now I can grow into who I am. And that means I can take space to let this integrate and be who I am.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely space.
Yeah, it is.
And
congratulations.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to let Peter hop up. I love hearing him as well.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to it. All right. We will, we'll be in touch again. Peter, how are you?
Brother, I am great. How are you this morning?
I'm doing wonderful.
Listen, I just had to hop on and just thank you for this experience. You've allowed me to share, and sharing everyone's just enlightening and just really reinforcing to it speaks to the way I live my life and the philosophy that I've lived by that I didn't even know was a philosophy. And you caught my attention when you said the number 42 this morning. And I was making my coffee and I looked down like, boom, like Matrix moment, right? Because 42 is like a number. I have a book of 42 literally, and it's so meaningful for me. And so it was meant for me to hear that this morning and hear this. And how you so profoundly spoke about loneliness and being alone. And I realized, like, being alone, for me at least, that's kind of like my natural state. And when I get crazy, when life gets nuts for me, it's when I'm trying to conform to that around me, which has expectations of me and brings me out of my aloneness. It brings me out of the identity of the I am, if you will. And it started for me at a very young age, and it eventually ended up being a pill addiction to narcotic pain meds and oxys, roxys, and perks. Like that's what happened, and that all brought me into a prison cell, and I ended up calling it the closet of God. But I realized that was all to bring me back to me, to bring me into that prison cell alone in protective custody. I was a police officer. That's a whole different story, but it was a gift to be there and to be alone. And I did not feel lonely at any point during that time. And it just brought me back to the I am, to the moment. It brought me to a book called The Power of Now, right? And it gave me my first glimpses of meditation and mindfulness and just like living in the moment. So, I pretty much fly solo, like to know me and to look at my life, which is a very full life. I'm surrounded by all manner of folks and involved in many different groups, and recovery is one of them. And from the casual observer, or even some who look a little bit deeper, they think, this guy's rocking out. His social circle must be pretty interesting, perhaps, but it's not. It's not. It's this right here, right now. Like, I live in this space. I live in this truth that you're exposing, right, to some folks. And I resisted it for the longest time. But life showed up, and the universe showed up and breathed life into me. And out of pain, because there had to be a halt in my life. And that came as a result of a pill addiction, a wicked pill addiction, which I'm so grateful for, because out of that was born recovery, which is just such a small portion of it. And but it was all stepping stones to get me to this moment right here, right now, in this time, space, reality, speaking to you, breathing in the knowledge that you've imparted, breathing in the awareness that you're giving through your voice. I don't know you, but I love you through that universe. And I came on, and I don't think we've ever spoken before. I'm almost sure that we haven't, but I called you brother, because you reside as my brother in this universe. And you've taught me this morning, and you've reminded me of what really is real. And I'll wrap up, I promise you, but no.
I'm appreciative.
Yeah, dude, it's like I can just rock out, and I fairly new to the app, and I gave my first live about a week ago, and I was introduced, quote unquote, by my sister Kristen Brown, and I spoke about my childhood. I spoke about not being close to my mom growing up, and then finally, getting the news from my aunt that the reality of my birth was not that I was having trouble breathing. The reality of my birth is the 10-pounder that came out of my mom, she wanted nothing to do with. She didn't hold me. She didn't, nothing. So I just grew up in my life closer to dad, not as close to mom. But she was in that space of postpartum before it was a thing. And I just realized that, like, when I'm living in my true essence, right, as a baby, like you just are who you are, right? I repel energy that's not pure. I repel chaos. And anybody that's around me who wants to bring chaos, we don't coexist very well in the same space. And that's just me being quiet. I don't speak out against them, but someone who's living in a crazy state, for lack of a better term, or not coming from a good place, they just don't hang out with me for that long. But getting off track, like this ADHD brain tends to do, but I just want to bring it back in and just say that 42 works for me. It's always worked for me my whole life. And I just really appreciate everything that you've said this morning. And it just brought me into a moment which I'm having trouble even describing, and it doesn't happen all that often, but it does happen, bro. But just one more thought. I just, I am enjoying the aloneness, and I walk every day pretty much the same route, right? And for the last couple of weeks, I've been noticing this hawk, and he just kind of hangs out in a complex near here, a townhome complex, where the trees aren't that grown. They're maybe 20, 30, 40 feet high, and he just kind of hangs out there. And I see him nearly every day for the last, definitely for the last week. And I just look at him and his aloneness, and he's just being, and I'm like, I get you, dude. I absolutely get you. And it's just a thing for me. So I love being alone, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination antisocial, but I'm rambling now, and I appreciate you, brother, and I look forward to more of your talks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Hawks there's a lot of symbolism behind hawks, and so you might want to look at that as well. Red tail, do you know? Where are you hawk?
I'm in Virginia.
You're in Virginia. Yes. Whereabouts in Virginia?
I'm just outside of Richmond in Hanover County.
Okay. My sister lives in Midlothian. So I get out that way sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, sweet. Sweet.
So maybe we'll meet up sometime. But
that'd be great.
But I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, listening and responding to 42. There's a lot there, and it's interesting, like your story of your mom and what have you, and this verse being about holding both male and female, and I have a lot of feminine, yielding qualities, and it sounds like you do as well. Not that hinges on our masculinity or anything like that, but But one of the things about the Tao is that the master, I always, in my translation of the Tao, always refer to the master as feminine. And that's because I look at feminine as the substance of a thing, right? It's the thing that can hold. It's the space. It is the substance. And unless you have substance, you don't need structure. You don't need structure to hold no substance. You need structure to hold substance. And so substance is the first thing. So Tao is the first thing. That is the feminine. The feminine is the first. Structure is there to expose the value of the substance. Like your soul, if your soul didn't exist, you wouldn't need a body.
Yeah.
And it's the body that allows the soul to experience. And it's and you have an aura that we can't see, like not everybody can see.
Yeah.
But that extends beyond the body. But there's an edge to that as well. And yet, at the level of Tao, there is no edge. and we are connected to all things. So,
which is just beautiful. And you're speaking about Tao. I'm not that familiar with it in that terminology, but I feel that it's
God God is a stand-in. The problem is God is seen as masculine. And that is, and so that's why, Taoism and the Tao Te Ching, that's why when I talk about the Tao Te Ching, it's very important to just emphasize that the masculine is the second, is the thing that exists because something existed before it. But it wasn't a thing at all. It was substance.
Substance. That substance, that oversoul, as they say, that power that permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe, being in and through all things.
And even exists beyond the edge of the universe, beyond the edge of manifest, beyond all things. And that's what was always. And that's just consciousness, and that's just the substance of all things.
And that's a new thought to me, and I appreciate you educating me on it. Like the edge of the universe is just a completely new concept to me, because I'd never even considered there being an edge. And I'll have to meditate.
Yeah, the universe is always expanding, so there has to be, like it has to expand into something, and it's expanding into the void, and the void is Tao, and the void is
Brilliant. Love it. Better than coffee. Better than coffee. Well, I appreciate
thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
It is true that we haven't spoken, so I'm glad that that you got a chance to come up, and that we got a chance to connect, and I'm looking forward to doing that again sometime. And you, I'll send you the text for 42. Seeing as that is what resonated with you, and I'll send 25 to Yvonne, and 31 to Cicely, and 42 to JK. Maybe I've already done that, I'm not sure. But thank you guys for joining me. This is Martin John. If you're interested in learning more about the Tao Te Ching, I have a workshop happening on November 2nd. You can find links to that in my profile, either on my Linktree or my website. It is through Satnam Yoga Chicago, and you can find links to that in the links that I provide through my profile. So you can also pick up a copy of my Tao Te Ching. And this is Martin John, and until next time, keep recovering yourself.